What's up, y'all?
We back.
Fellas Forum, we back. We -1.
Yeah.
He probably sleep.
We're spending time with
Honestly,
his
he
family.
probably is.
Whichever.
Nah, he sleep.
He's asleep.
That dude sleep. We got JQ, Delta, T Will, Big Mike in the house. How everybody doing?
I think we have.
Always
Chilling.
highly favored.
We got some hot topics today.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
It's always something going on, something crazy in a crazy COVID election time. I mean, like the timing of this couldn't have been more, I don't know, like relevant when you got a president up for re-election, people trying to get elected, and you got these protests going on. You got layoffs. You got so much stuff going on, and yet and still we have people on the upper echelon of politics that do things like we're about to show you. Cue it up, Joe.
All right. You want to start with that congresswoman?
Oh, what we
Doing that
start
one
with?
first?
What'd you say we started with?
Well, I thought you wanted to talk about the tips to service, but we can do.
Oh yeah, that's all right. We'll talk about the tips because
Let's do that. We got a lot of. We got some broad
gun.
groups here.
So the tips thing. Go ahead. How this came about? We may have brushed on this before in an early episode if you guys are faithful watchers, but we were talking about tipping people, and now that everybody's doing so much DoorDash, not giving y'all no plug because I don't use you. What's the other one? What's the other one? DoorDash,
Grubhub. Is it
Grubhub.
Yeah.
And a lot of places are delivering. So we was talking about tipping. This came up before because people said that people of color don't tip well. Well, I tip very well. And if anybody watching this, and they know my face, they know I tip well. So the discussion came up about tipping for different things. Me and Mike were having this conversation about tipping people at Sonic. How y'all feel about that? I know how Mike feels.
I usually, it depends on how much I get. It depends on how much food I get from them.
What about you, Joel?
Yeah.
You tip the.
If
tip
it's
the
just
car hops?
myself, yeah, I tip the car hops. If it's usually like myself, like, and I order or like a small thing, I usually like either if it's like I don't have enough. Like how am I trying to say this? I give them like the rest of the dollar and then maybe another dollar, like if they're breaking change.
Yeah.
But if it's like a bigger meal, then yeah, I typically look at like 15%.
Oh, you don't tip. Get out of here.
If all I have is a card,
we know Mike don't tip.
if all I have is a card, I can't tip them. They don't have a way to tip on the card.
Hey, I told Mike I tipped the car up. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "What?"
My biggest problem though with like going to Sonic,
I
like Sonic's not. Yeah, but you can't tip at car hops at Sonic on a card. They don't allow you to.
Yes, you can.
What?
Yeah, you
When
can.
did that happen?
It says forever. It's right there. Like the next screen, it says, "Do you want to leave a tip?"
I had never seen that. I don't eat at Sonic
on the
enough. I guess.
prompt, they got it on
No.
the prompter thing.
Yeah, it's on the
I
thing.
guess I don't eat at Sonic enough.
I don't like
anymore.
doing that though.
You can always give it to the person that comes out.
You
Yeah,
tip.
but I don't
you
carry
tip,
that much cash with me. That's why, like when I go to like a restaurant, like a sit-in, it's at least 15, if not higher.
You tip. You tip the car hop, T Will.
If I'm paying with cash, yeah, I'll tip her. I'll give her a couple bucks or him a couple bucks. But if I'm paying with a card, no, I typically don't do that because I don't like messing with them numbers and that card shit and all that. And I might tip too much. It just be weird. I just usually stick to cash.
Might tip too much.
Hell yeah.
I was listening to some reporting. Actually, I think it was last week, and it kind of does play into this little topic. It was this guy who was talking about how he's been serving people during, like in restaurants during the whole COVID situation, and how they have to do all these extra steps and a lot more stuff for service, and people just aren't tipping, or they're just treating their servers like crap. And I'm like, and he was talking to this reporter, and the reporter was asking the questions, and he's like, it's unbelievable how hard you work for somebody, even in that short little instance, and they still feel they have all the authority to just treat you like a second class citizen because you are serving them in that moment. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? I have seen that, and I'll be totally honest. I've probably been a kind of a crappy customer a couple of times because I felt like they were screwing me over. But it wasn't the server; it was the management that I had problems with. I tried to treat the server nice, but it's just, I mean, how often, because we're in a place where we're being served, we feel like we don't have to deliver respect back to the people that are serving us.
Right.
I think it's a mental issue.
And that's my thing. It's like when I go to places and I see people just like running a server, like running them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can I get some salt? Can I get some water? Can I get some ice? This, and that. And then they don't tip them. I'm like, that's messed up, man. I'm like, them people ain't there. They ain't your slave. I mean, like they working. You know they working for tips.
No, I do say though, if I'm at a restaurant and I wait 20 minutes before they even come and get me a glass of water or take my order, I'm like, I ain't gonna tip very good.
No, you get bad.
We usually leave.
Bad.
I don't do that.
Bad
if I see them
service.
over there
I'm
just
out.
on their phone chatting with another coworker, and I'm still waiting for a glass of water or a menu, I am probably not going to tip very good. So
right, you shouldn't.
That's just because I want to instill that I'm here to give them business, and they don't know what my schedule's like, but I don't want to treat them horribly either.
So I travel a lot, and another one of the discussions was whether or not you tip at a hotel when you're like, traveling or whatever. Do you tip? And I usually do at the end of the week. But here lately, like because of COVID-19, they don't really come and clean your room every day like they normally would. So I don't tip as much.
Phone.
What the hell?
What was that?
What's that?
Who was that?
Who
it was TJ. He's all like laughing.
This dude, he like, what me?
You good?
But yeah, so that was another question I have to you guys. So if you go stay at a hotel, or we went to resorts. I mean, T-Will, we one of the first times we went with you guys, and they I know they have a cleaning service there, but we left a tip. I mean, I just feel like that's what you're supposed to do. When we all went to Vegas and we got the limo, I tipped that dude before we even, took off. I mean,
Right.
it's just, I feel like that's a courtesy. I mean, and then, go ahead.
I don't know. I get in trouble for tipping.
How do you get?
You
In
know,
trouble?
and my wife is not a tipper. I mean, if you don't give her good service, she will not tip She will not tip you nothing. Now me, I figured they took the time to come out and they're trying. They might be new. I don't know what their story is. They might be having an off day. I'm a tipper, and don't let drinks be involved. I'm gonna tip your ass big. Because I don't know, man. I mean, I've never worked in fast food or dealing with customers around food or anything, so I don't really know what they go through as far as being a waiter or waitress. But I do like to tip, and if I'm with you, and I tell my wife, I'll look at her. Hey, did you tip him? If you did,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull this money out and I'm gonna lay some on the table. If you didn't tip enough, how much you tip? You know what I'm saying? I'll tip.
Well,
If it's bad,
well, fellas, I best of both worlds. I had worked in a fast food place.
There
I
you
had
go.
worked in a restaurant. So, I worked at Olive Garden and I worked at Sonny's. And I don't tip Sonny. People at Sonny. I don't. Because
why's that?
Because it's I don't, man. I order
You
my
don't feel like
food.
the effort's in there? Maybe?
No, it's not in there, And I never got mad at people for not tipping me because I'm getting paid. I'm not getting paid $2 an hour. I'm getting paid at that time minimum wage or above minimum wage. So we wasn't counting on tips at Sonny's. We wasn't counting on tips. But at Olive Garden, when I go to Olive Garden to eat, I tip very well because I've been on the receiving end of that when people would treat you like shit and don't pay you, don't tip you at all. And I had one guy, and y'all probably know him, named Judge Joe Brown.
Judge Joe Brown.
I was in Memphis. I was in Memphis one day. When I was in Memphis working at Olive Garden, Judge Joe Brown showed up, and we were fighting to get to that table because we know like Judge Joe Brown gonna tip good. So he was reading this book, Safari Hunting, and I asked him. I said, Judge, you been to Africa? Are you going to Africa? He said, yeah, I've been there. Plan on going back again, but this time be more prepared. I said, okay. He said, young man, I appreciate your conversation, but right now you starting off at $15 in tip. Oh, it's on you to keep that number up.
Damn.
Wow, that's the way to set it up right there.
So I wound up getting $12 out of that 15.
Oh, really? He docked you.
That's the story
Yeah.
I heard. Yeah, he told me that story before. I was
Yeah.
talking to Brian saying that somebody told me a story like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that.
Wow.
How about you?
I ain't never even thought about it like that though. That's
I do
dope.
that. I said $20 in ones on the table one time, and I was like, "This your tip. Don't mess it up."
Yeah.
They only got like 11. Drink got low.
He docked me $3 because he wanted tea, and they gave him sweet tea, and he put the sweet and low in here, and they gave him sweet tea, and he's a young man. I asked for the unsweet tea, and they gave me sweet tea. So I'm sorry about that, Judge. So he docked me $3 for that.
Yeah.
That's
So
dope.
so just so you guys know, I do have we're gonna have a guest to when we talk about our last topic. I just confirmed that just now. So just to let you know.
Mike, you want
So-
to say anything about tips real quick before we move on?
Yeah, because Mike, I know Big Mike.
Mike was upset because I told him that when we went to Florida and stayed in the resort that I tipped $80 for the people to clean up at the end of the week. Look, TJ face.
Right.
And
Well, he left his underwear there too. I mean, it's kind of fair.
You
what
tripping
the
for real?
fuck? No, I don't do no shit like that. I don't wear underwear on vacation.
He got
No.
really relax.
But I just simply asked the question like, what would you charge somebody to like clean a house? What would you want to get paid? It was like, well, them people get paid. And I was like, that's not the point. I mean, they still coming and doing a service and probably not making that much of a wage. But then Mike said, he said, I see what you did there. That's cool. You probably made somebody's day. So
Yeah.
he was kind of okay with it at the end of the conversation. But at first, him and his significant other went off on me.
I'm still tripping about it. I mean, I just didn't want to argue about it, but I'm still tripping. $80, bro.
He said, I'm still tripping about it. I ain't want to argue.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't paying motherfucker nothing. I'm sorry.
I'm
And
really
let
bad.
alone $80. Now look, if it's a
Get-
bellhop
it's
carrying my bags up to my
hotel.
room or something, I'll tip him maybe $5, maybe $10 or something. But I ain't finna, motherfucker. I'm staying in the room. I mean, half the time I don't need you to come in there and clean it any damn way.
I mean, that's
You know,
different though.
but
That's
when I'm leaving, I'm leaving.
Mike, we're losing your audio.
People got to get you the customer, BC. You know
What's
what I'm
that?
saying?
Yeah.
what you say now?
They ain't the customer. You
What
the
you mean?
customer. You
What do you
tipping
mean?
him like you're the customer. What? Man,
How am I
no.
tipping them like they're a customer? I
You
mean,
pay a
to
guy.
me,
Man,
man, it's like kind of like paying it forward. I mean, if I'm able to, I don't know, that might make somebody's day. I don't know. I
Yeah.
pay for
Yeah,
people.
You
I pay
don't
for
know where
pe-
that money's going. It might
I
go. in
pay
a
for
really
people's
good
food randomly. If I'm out somewhere and I'm looking at somebody and I'm in line and they like, struggling with the change, I'll pay for it. I'm just like, here you go. And
man.
I don't tell them my name and my email. I'm just like, hey, here you go. They like,
Hey,
thank go ahead.
My room ain't $80 dirty.
Hold up,
Just let me,
bruh.
just let me know next
Mike,
time you go to the
Mike,
store.
can you,
I can send you in.
Mike,
Check
hold up,
in the basket.
Mike, your audio is
Coins
terrible.
While you in front of Brian. So he can pay that shit.
Mike. I want you to tell the story of why you paid for somebody's groceries in the store.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Hey, I
Hey,
paid
tell
for
the story.
groceries right in front of me because that's straight and simple. because they was taking too long. So I need to get out of here. You think about it. I pay for your stuff. Go my way. Yeah,
Stu said,
so
They're trying to
Stu
break
said-
out the coupons. You're like, no, I
Stu's like,
got plastic.
I
We're
gotta go.
good.
I gotta get out of here. Here, go ahead, pay for your stuff too. That's hilarious. Mike said it's taking too damn long. I got you to do.
The fact that
Mike.
you, Mike, who is the one person who's never urgent to get anywhere, was saying someone else
Right.
was
Right.
going too slow.
right.
Hey, you know what the most famous thing you said today was, "I'ma be Chiefs ready," and you right. You're gonna show up at the last minute, ready to go. You right about that.
Hey.
You guys ready
No,
for
The
the
whole
second
game. What was our second topic? Mike got me
topic?
tripping now.
Attorney
I
General
ain't never heard of
Barr.
that, Mike.
Attorney General Barr had to go and talk to Congress the other day, and they were grilling him about a lot of things. They were grilling him about the mail-in ballots. That was one big topic. Another big topic was the protests and the use of federal agents, especially in Portland. And this one congresswoman goes and grills them. I'm going to play the clip for the audience. You guys should be able to hear it. And then
Was this? When was this?
it was yesterday,
Yesterday.
and it's kind of blown up.
This
today.
happened yesterday.
Yes, it happened.
This happened yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're going to play the video for the audience. You guys can hear it too, and then we'll talk about it after that.
On two separate occasions after President Trump tweeted "Liberate Michigan" to subvert stay-home orders to protect the public health
I'll go
of
and mess
people
it up,
in
bro.
Michigan.
All right, hang on a
Protesters swarmed the Michigan
the
Capitol
drive-thru?
carrying
I had it
guns,
all feedback
some
on
with
the backside of me.
swastikas,
Man, I
Confederate
had the
flags,
whole thing
and one
up and
even
going.
with a dark-haired doll with
I don't know.
You got all
heard
that
somebody
noise in the background.
background.
Your background noise. What you got going on, boy? You got the window down or something?
What is that?
No, the
noise?
window's up.
All right, I got this whole clip ready. I'm going to bring it
What's
up,
that?
and then just going to drag it
On
over.
two separate occasions after President Trump tweeted "Liberate Michigan" to subvert stay-home orders to protect the public health of people in Michigan. Protesters swarmed the Michigan Capitol carrying guns, some with swastikas, Confederate flags, and one even with a dark-haired doll with a noose around its neck. Are you aware that these protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded?
No,
You're not aware of that?
I was not aware of it.
Major protests in Michigan. You're the attorney general, and you didn't know that the protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded. So obviously you couldn't be concerned about that.
Well, there are a lot
You-
of protests
you didn't-
around the United States, and on June
Attorney
1st,
General
I
Barr,
was
you
worried
seem
about
to
the
be
District of
engaging
Columbia,
in
which is
protests
federal.
in certain parts of the country. You're very aware of those, but when protesters with guns and swastikas and
I am
Confederate
aware of
flags. Excuse me,
protesters
Mr.
in the
Barr, this
federal
is my
government.
time, and I control it. You are aware of certain kinds of protesters, but in Michigan, when protesters carry guns and Confederate flags and swastikas and call for the governor of Michigan to be beheaded and shot and lynched, somehow you're not aware of that. Somehow you didn't know about it, so you didn't send federal agents in to do to the president's supporters what you did to the president's protesters. In fact, you didn't put pepper balls on those protesters. So the point I'm trying to make here, Mr. Barr, that I think is very important for the country to understand, is that there is a real discrepancy in how you react as the Attorney General, the top cop in this country, when white men with swastikas storm a government building with guns. There is no need for the president to, quote, activate you because they're getting the president's personal agenda done. But when black people and people of color protest police brutality, systemic racism, and the president's very own lack of response to those critical issues, then you forcibly remove them with armed federal officers, pepper bombs, because they are considered terrorists by the president. You take an aggressive approach to Black Lives Matter protests, but not to right-wing extremists threatening to lynch a governor if it's for the president's benefit. Did I get it right, Mr. Barr?
I have responsibility for the federal government, and the White House is the seat of the executive
Mr. Barr, let me just
branch,
make it clear.
not
You
for
are
the-
supposed
the
to
Michigan
represent
authorities
the
can
people
handle-
of the United
Michigan
States
authorities
of
can
America,
handle-
not violate people's First Amendment rights. You are supposed to uphold democracy and secure equal justice under the law, not violently dismantle certain protesters based on the president's personal agenda.
Gentlelady's time is expired.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask unanimous consent to also introduce into the record a report from the MIT Election Data and Science Lab, which says that over the past 20 years, more than 250 million ballots have been cast by mail, and the fraud rate is 0.00006%.
So
Wow.
she basically
She tore
manhandled
him another, a
Yeah,
whole
she
new
did.
one.
I do want to hit on something though that she said. I don't think it quite goes the way she expressed it. Was that she said that these white supremacists or people with swastikas and Confederate flags were not being what's the word, confronted by federal agents like they are in Portland because they're doing the president's agenda. I don't think that they're doing the president's agenda. I think they don't fit his narrative and he doesn't want to touch them because he knows they're going to vote for him. But I don't think it's necessarily that he wants them to go and kill a governor. I don't like that kind of narrative she kind of set up like that. But the fact that he knows there is his base, and he knows his base is not in Portland because they're extremely liberal and they're not going to vote for him. He feels okay with sending federal agents over there to beat the crap out of those people. But the fact that Barr is like, I can't.
I think that the thing that really bugs me about that is like you're a smart guy, so like to go on TV and or go in front of Congress and play dumb is like, come on, man. You are not that dense that you think people don't know that you're aware of what's going on in these places and are aware that, I mean, it made national news. It's all over the news. They posing and everybody was calling them patriots. Come on, man. You know. Don't say you don't know. You could say the second part. What he said is, my responsibility is to the federal government, not the state of Michigan. And maybe you could try to play that, but don't act like you didn't know what was going on. Come on, man.
Even if you tried to play that, then why are you in Portland?
Right.
Yeah, Joe, because to hit on what you just said, Joe, because when she was grilling, he contradicted himself.
Yes, he did.
He said Michigan authorities should be able to handle those protests. If that's the case, then should Washington authorities be able to handle that situation?
And here's the thing I don't understand, because all the reporting I've been seeing and listening to on the Portland protests, they said before the federal agents got there, it had dwindled down to like less than 100 people a day during the protests. And at that point, President Trump, when he wanted to do this law and order thing, he sends federal agents there. They start grabbing people, and now it's thousands of people. So
they got worse. They got worse.
And they grabbed the wrong people. They started grabbing military people, veterans. So veterans came out to support them. And while the nurses was helping veterans, they were grabbing nurses. So the nurses come out to help them, and it's just like a powder keg now.
It is. And I think the fact that I don't even feel like he cares about Portland at all. I think it's just it's a piece in his puzzle for fitting his way he wants to run his campaign. He's going to say these people are lawless, and I'm like, they were fine. They were protesting, and they were doing okay, and they were dwindling down. It probably would have been gone next week if he hadn't touched it.
Yeah, I mean, and when you got this mantra of people already viewing the police as too militarized, even though I don't necessarily agree with that, you can't have these type of you just reinforcing what people are mad about. Okay, we're gonna bring out these guys that's in camouflage and dressed like soldiers, and just start snatching people off the street.
Exactly.
Come on, man, you can't do
Yeah.
stuff like that. You can't be that
Yeah.
dense. You can't be that dense.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand why they're shooting the protesters with those damn bullet things, rubber pellet, whatever those
Rubber
bullet
bullets.
things
Rubber
are. 'Cause
bullets.
that shit, man, those things do damage. I've been
Yeah,
seeing
they do.
photos of people's eyes are being shot out, and
the
freaking
problem
just-
is
it's crazy.
Yeah.
when you're using those type of projectiles, bean bags, rubber bullets, gas canisters and stuff like that, those are usually on a concentrated target, and they're like not shot at people.
Not at their face.
When I was trained with rubber bullets, you know what they told us to do? They said skip them off the ground to try to hit them, to slow them down a little bit. Unless somebody's got like a gun, you really don't really shoot them directly. But when you just shoot them into a crowd, you at night, and
Don't
there's
even know
tear
what you're
gas and fireworks and stuff going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this, but about 10 years ago when they first introduced rubber bullets, there was
that only 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago.
Wow, I thought it was longer than that. Wow,
They
that's
might have been
crazy.
around. They might have been around for a while, but this is when I was in law enforcement. There was a riot after a hockey game, and in Montreal, and the guy was
Sounds like a good time.
up on a stoplight, and they shot him with a rubber bullet, and it hit him in the face and busted his eye socket. He fell down and died.
Go figure.
Yeah. And they were like, oops, what do we do now?
Damn.
So they was kind of like shy on the rubber bullets there for a minute, because they was like, you know, this is supposed to be a rubber bullet. They ain't supposed to hurt nobody. So,
Well, they know it's going to hurt them. It's supposed to get their attention, but it can cause serious, especially when it hits the face and the head. It can cause serious damage.
yeah.
Mike, how you feel
So-
about all this, man? You being so subtle and quiet.
Trash.
Mikey.
Trash. That's
Just
about
trash.
it.
Gosh,
Trash.
you
Just
need to
trash.
be the public spokesperson for the next president. I mean, it would be so fantastic.
Trash.
Trash.
Be easy.
All right, fellas. We got the next topic we're going to talk about was in Missouri. We had a rash of layoffs behind COVID-19, and
It's
there was
rough.
some departments that were hit really hard, and I really think that these departments are important.
Yes,
I do
some very big
have
ones.
I have a guy I know. His name is Dan. He works in one of these.
Dan.
He works in one of these departments, and we're gonna bring him in.
Dan the
Bring
man.
on big.
Uh,
Oh, there
He's,
he is, right there.
he's advocating for some of these layoffs that have been happening. Like I said, how you doing, Dan? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you well.
Hey,
How
how's
are
it
you?
going, Dan?
How's
How's
it
it
going,
going?
Dan?
How you doing, Dan?
How you doing?
Dan is in a department of social services, and he does some of the things that one of the departments that got hit the hardest. He's in the southern part of Missouri. I don't want to give away too much. I'll let him let that be at his discretion. But we just kind of want to get a perspective from somebody else, because we only see what we see on TV, and we can't really be in the backfold of what the ramifications are that come behind these layoffs in these departments that are so specialized and so important in Missouri, in particular for children and the homeless, and mental illness, and just there's a lot of stuff in that one little area that they took money from, and it's just kind of crazy. So without further ado, Dan, go ahead.
Right. Well, for me, I'm speaking to you guys as a citizen today and not a member of the agency I work for, of course.
Okay.
One of the things that I
Okay.
think that my agency does is we deal with the consequences of poverty. We deal with the consequences of systemic failures. I mean, those things happen in every country and every society. For me, one of the things I see happening in Missouri is the governor is putting more money into $15 million into tourism, and he's also putting a lot more money into law enforcement. And there's been talk of 2 new privatized prisons being opened up, and a lot more police being put on the ground.
I didn't know about the prison thing.
Right.
Wow.
So for me, that just seems counterintuitive, right? I mean, if you look at the scope of human life, you know, a lot of the problems we see with people who do have criminal or mental health issues stem from their childhood, right? And so in my opinion, while children's division does deal with things like, child abuse and stuff, what we're really doing is investing in people's future, right? So if kids have a stability, safety, security, good health, forming a healthy attachments and bonds with people, well, then you don't need as many freaking prisons, right?
Exactly.
So, I'm gonna try not to curse. If I can curse at work, I don't.
Hey, you can curse on our show.
Curse here. Right? So
we don't care if you curse here.
Speak your mind.
You say what the fuck we want, Dan.
So for me, you know, whenever you're investing in, prisons and law enforcement and stuff and there's a place for that stuff. You know, I'd be the first to admit that law enforcement's helped me in my job in the field before. But at the same time, you know, I mean, it seems counterintuitive to me, you know, and one of the problems I have with this privatization of prison is the same problem I would have if they tried privatizing my agency. There's just some things that don't work well with private ownership.
When they're trying to build a profit as opposed to
actually
reform people or help people restructure their life.
Right. So one of the things we saw in the 90s when the Clintons and the Democrats at that time period started this push with Get Tough on Crime in the late 80s, early 90s, we saw a lot of prisons getting built to deal with a lot of crime that was happening at the time. And what we saw was these people who own these prisons started paying lobbyists to start changing the law so there'd be more prisons.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And we saw how that worked out. We're as far as a quote unquote free country, we've got one of the highest prison populations on the planet for the size of our population.
It doesn't help that we put people in prison for some silly things like marijuana. But
so what was some of the cuts specific to your agency?
So one of the things that's been talked about a lot in the media is they got rid of mid-level management. I personally lost my supervisor, who I have a lot of respect for. She got demoted. Several other people got demoted as well. Southwest Missouri across the board saw a lot of a loss there. Now, you know, one of the things I've written about we have a group of advocates for child welfare in Missouri on Facebook. One of the things we've talked about on there is how our agency has, over the years, overcome a lot of obstacles in general. You know, politicians have created, in my opinion, politicians have treated my agency as a political football. You know, sometimes you'll see the left get on there and they'll be like, oh, we need to have more laws to protect children. You'll see the right get on there and they'll say, oh, we've got to, you know, lower the waste, right, and save our budget. Right. And so our agency has kind of been in the middle of that forever. And what you end up seeing is a lot of laws micromanaging what we do. And you see a lot of policies getting changed to accommodate certain people's opinion about what we should do. But throughout all that, we've always had people who've been there for decades who have learned how to navigate those crises, so to speak, who have learned how to.
So what are some of the services that you guys render besides just, you know, people hear children's division? I don't think they really know exactly what that means.
That's a big division.
That goes with it.
All right.
So what's some of the? Can you enlighten us on some of us, maybe for some listeners that don't know exactly some of the other things that you guys do within your department?
One of the things we do is we receive hotlines on allegations of child abuse and neglect. So that's the first service our agency provides.
Oh, okay.
Right? We take the hotlines, come in, we take them, we process them to the appropriate county.
When you say a hotline, what's a hotline?
A hotline is a phone call that you make whenever you're worried about child abuse and neglect, right? So you pick up the phone, you call a hotline, and we respond to the hotline at the call center. If there are concerns there that rise to the level of abuse or neglect possibilities, we send out a worker to investigate it. So that's the second service we provide, is investigating allegations of abuse and neglect, right? And so people go out, they look into these concerns, they evaluate them, and at that point in time, if there's something to be to deal with, you know, they will see if they can deal with it without meddling in folks' lives. And if that doesn't work, then they provide services. Those are called family-centered services. So we have workers that go out into the home where there's concern and see if we can help the family strengthen their own natural systems of resilience, right?
Right.
Right.
So this is not a place where it's just like, okay, I always hear this. The children's division is coming. They're gonna take my kids. And I was in law enforcement. I know that's not how it works. Delta's also in law enforcement. He knows that's not how it works, but I don't think a lot of people understand that there is a very, from what I understand, there's a very push to make it work at home and not remove the child from their family.
Try to keep them with the actual biological parents.
Right. Use the natural systems of the family, mom, dad, extended family, schools, whatever, churches, employment, to keep that family intact. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That's right. But sometimes that doesn't work, right? Sometimes you can't, if you have a kid being removed from a methamphetamine lab and there's, a constant flow of people who harm kids going in and out of there and the family has nowhere else to go and they lose all their resources. Sometimes you're left with the unfortunate possibility of taking that child out of that home, disrupting that family and putting them somewhere else, which is a foster home, right? And so that's like kind of one of the final services that we offer after working with a family while trying to keep them intact. Right.
Well, that's a good perspective. And what would you say the ratio to calls to workers that you have on a daily basis?
This is going to be cool.
Specifically where you used to work. Because I know that was.
You guys were already understaffed, anyways, weren't you?
Yeah, I feel we're understaffed. I mean, even when they say we are fully staffed, I feel we're understaffed, right? Now, I think we're coming for all workers, but I really believe that. Yeah, I would say whenever I was working investigations in the county I previously worked at one point in time, I was taking 3 hotlines a day, trying to make sure kids were safe.
And that's you getting the hotline, getting it assigned to you, going out and finding the child, speaking to the child, speaking to the parent or parents, and that's usually involves 2 people. If I'm speaking correctly. So if you have because maybe you guys don't know this, but a lot of times teachers are mandated reporters, which a lot of the calls come from schools. It's the reason why we're talking about this is because school is being pushed to start. They did this big cut. They took a lot of social services away, which sucks up a lot of the resources. Schools suck up a lot of the resources from social services. So if they go away, I think we're gonna have an issue here. And that's why I'm saying, like, if you say you get a typical call from a school that there was some type of abuse, kid on kid, are you required to go see both of those kids and both sets of parents?
It depends on the report, not necessarily, but sometimes yes. Like, sometimes we'll get hotlines from mandated reporters, like you said, that it's about 2 kids fighting in the hallway. That probably won't make it to past our intake department taking the phone call. Now, if it's a kid sexually abusing or seriously hurting another child, well, that might be something we do take and get involved in, right? The level of that response depends on what the hotline unit that takes the call decides.
So those calls could take anywhere from 10 minutes to 6 hours, depending on the severity.
Anywhere from like a minute where you realize that hotline's come in before and you duplicate it, all the way up to a full day of work if you need to remove the kiddos.
Right. So, I mean, with are there any concerns with your experience and your background with upcoming school starting and complicate COVID-19 on it, and the fact that people are essentially homeschooling? Do you feel like there's going to be an influx of calls?
How much of your calls come from a school?
Your signal's really dropping there, T-Will.
T-Will, you're frozen. He asked how many of your calls on average come from schools.
Well, boy, I would say when school's in session and the teachers have gotten to know the kids, I would say you get, in a week, you might get 25, 30% of your hotlines that come in from mandated workers in schools.
Wow.
But that's at the peak month of April and October. So the thing that worries me about the COVID and the schools being closed is you've got a bunch of families that have certain levels of dysfunction building behind the scenes, like pressure, right? Unemployed parents, everyone's locked in the house. I mean, we've all experienced the COVID frustration of being at home with our extended families. You take that with drugs, alcohol, mental health issues, things like that. And then you combine that with no one talking about that with the family for, going on 6 months. And you're going to have some kids showing up with some bruises, some verbal abuse, emotional abuse, possibly sexual abuse. And their teachers are going to see it. And they're going to be busy, in my opinion, that first 2 weeks making lots of hotlines. Now, one of the things that we haven't really talked about is Children's Division has a high turnover rate. Like really high. Like, your average worker will last anywhere from a year or two. And then they're like, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. So with that being in mind and us having a lot of new workers and having this potential wave of hotlines come in, how many workers is that going to drive off? How many of these reports aren't going to get handled in a way that's really fair or just, And that's what concerns me about this upcoming surge of hotlines that we theoretically will get.
And that's all on top of, would you say the supervisor's role, since that's where they seem to make the cuts, the supervisor's role, is it very key, or is it kind of maybe they thought they could get away with it, or is it, as a supervisor, do they go out and take calls, and when do they fill in? What's kind of the role that they cut out of this ecosystem you have?
Right. So if you accept that turnover is high and workers are basically, your vast majority of workers are new workers, the biggest role the supervisor fills in there is experience of knowing what certain bruises look like. For instance, Mongolian spots, right? Certain kids could have Mongolian spots on their skin that looks like a bruise. Now they teach that in our basic training program here.
Right.
Yeah. But there's an entire slew of like little inside information that these supervisors and mid-level management have about abuse and neglect and bureaucracy, and more importantly, social contacts in the community, law enforcement, forensic interviewers, foster homes, mental health treatment facilities, drug treatment facilities. Some of that information, those relationships are just gone now.
And I'm glad you touched on law enforcement. So what is the law enforcement role with Children's Division, since there seems to be a more focus on we need more law enforcement and their roles and how they handle these calls in relationship to you? Because I know that where I worked, a lot of the workers kind of handle a lot of that stuff. They said they only really called us when there was a problem.
Right.
And I didn't really see that in the county that you worked in. I didn't really see the hand-in-hand thing, kind of like where I worked. I felt like it was a little bit better. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah. So Missouri's a weird state, and then our child protective service workers can't directly take custody of children in a crisis.
No, he's still there. He's
frozen.
good. He's good. You're frozen. Dan's good.
Anyway, so one of the things is that Children's Division can't take custody of children if there's a crisis. It's relying on law enforcement and certain other individuals, doctors, therapists, sometimes school officials, if they're qualified to take custody of children if there's a crisis. So with our system, law enforcement's on the scene usually to take it, and they have to fill out a form if they want to take custody of the kiddo, that we provide law enforcement in the field. So that's kind of the critical piece that law enforcement provides with Children's Division. The problem is some of our more rural circuits and counties, there's not a lot of specialized training on what that looks like, right? And so might take a kid into care because they, for instance, they got another pending phone call coming in they got to go deal with immediately, and they don't trust the situation to resolve itself on its own, right? So that's the real critical piece. But once law enforcement takes custody, that's only good for roughly 24 hours. And at that point in time, it has to go in front of the judge to be confirmed whether or not it's going to stay. That child's going to stay in custody.
Right. So go ahead, Joel.
I had a question. So I had heard about the layoffs in the Children's Division, and I haven't quite heard how many other divisions in social services have been hit.
Well, from what I understand, DYS and
DYS, what's that stand for?
Division of Youth Services. It's the department that deals with teenage children who are having criminal stuff going on and behavioral things going on. It's basically, whenever people say you're going to juvie, what they're usually referring to as DYS, right? But DYS is an amazing system in Missouri. It's what, in one point in time in the early 2000s, this is one of the best systems in the country for juvenile delinquency and having a low recidivism rate. But DYS was hit, from what I understand, and I haven't heard all the facts yet. They've had to close a couple of facilities and cut some staff and cut part of their budget. The other department that was hit was Department of Mental Health. They cut into their budget, but by and large, you know, it was Children's Division that took a budget cut and took a decrease in staff. And so that was what really kind of blew my mind and, you know, kind of got me involved in trying to get this information out there.
That just bothers me to know that we got to abandon children for tourism.
Yeah. I mean, that is the kind of a slap in the face, man. It's just like you lay all these people off that are critical for the well-being of children and you know, people around Missouri, and you're like, oh, we need to get people to come here and visit. What? I mean, come on,
man. I can understand they're like, oh, we got to bring more money back to the state to pay the taxes, but I'm like, you still can't let this drop. There's got to be somewhere else you could have, you know, trimmed up the budget, not in child services and stuff like that. I mean, that's not.
Well, and I've got 17 years in this agency, and I have seen us weather these kinds of storms before, but this is unprecedented, having our staff directly cut like this. In the past, we've not hired new workers. In the past, we've done it through attrition. I've never seen the state of Missouri cut 90-something workers like in the weirdest place. You know what I mean?
And cutting this experience out like that, I have to agree with you, Dan. That seems like ludicrous. I mean, to me, if you have the high turnover rate on the bottom, that would have been a more reasonable thing to do, because your qualified people can handle the workload and they, like you said, they know how to navigate. Seemed like to me that would have been a better fit, but
they were just seeing dollars on a page is all they saw.
Yeah, so. That's
Dan, it hurts my heart to know that school is out during this COVID epidemic thing, and a lot of that stuff at home is not being reported, because I can only imagine the calls that you guys would get if that was still prevalent. That's ridiculous. That's crazy.
And what scares me, I mean, there's one thing here, which is kiddos being missed by the system because of this. The other thing that scares me is workers that are getting stretched thin that might be taking 3 or 4 hotline calls a day.
Right.
Might take one in that they shouldn't have.
Right.
And I mean, our system's
that just
not
does
perfect.
damage to the family at that point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You know, because once you get in our system, it's really hard to get out, and that's just the fact of our work. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, go ahead.
I might have missed it, but Dan told me, how did they cut the people in your area? Did they offer you another gig somewhere else, or did they just let people go?
From what I've been told, they offered people different jobs throughout the state, throughout their region. But overall, it was mostly a pay cut and a responsibility change for the vast majority of the workers that lost their job. You know, for me, I mean, it seems like our agency was a little top heavy anyway, but it's because we didn't have enough frontline staff to do our job. You know, if you think of management and workers as a pyramid, our pyramid was missing the left and right side of it because we didn't have enough workers. And they're like, oh, we still got to make this a pyramid. And so they cut off the top to trim it up. But we needed those people for when we had the workers that we were going to fill the slots with, right?
Right.
And that's the thing that's really scary to me.
Right. I mean, that to me, essentially, that from a law enforcement standpoint, you would not go into a department and get rid of all the sergeants and then just like go do well. You wouldn't do that. You would more likely get rid of just the regular beat cops, because you need that experience on the front line. And that's, to me, that's what it seems like they did. They cut the
took the leadership.
Yeah, they took the leadership, and how are you gonna bring more people in to want to do these things if you don't have the leadership there to teach them how to navigate that difficult job? Because it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy to go to somebody's house and tell them that something's wrong here and we need to talk to you about whether or not you're going to get to keep your child. So, you know, that's not an easy task. I don't think I know I never liked it. So,
Well, and yeah, absolutely. It's a heartbreaking thing. For me, the thing that really broke my heart about this whole deal is we had workers and supervisors who were volunteering to take a pay cut, to take a job change so we could keep our leadership intact. And those, from what I understand, those suggestions were discarded out of hand very quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just not even that doesn't even make any sense to me. I mean, but
that's like taking one for the team. That's like what Tom Brady did. I'm gonna take
You're bringing this back to sports, man.
Right.
Well, I hope, I don't know. I really hope enough people hear about this and at least pressure our government officials that they need to make cuts somewhere else. I mean, this is anything that bad happens to a child, that's generations of problems down the road. And
exactly.
It's horrible because they're they're not only the future generation, but they are the innocence that we still have to try to preserve, and we're losing it because of this stuff. So.
Right. And that, I think that it's so sad that I went and looked at the budget for the state of Missouri, like all the departments that have resources and things like that, and I'm thinking like, not to be mad, but you could have cut some stuff out of Parks and Recs. They're all closed right now. Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, ain't nobody can go to them. You got the playground's closed. I mean, really. And then when you do something like that, and you because Mike was talking to me about when he worked for the state, how they just basically said, if you don't take this job, then that's on you because we offered you something else. Even if it's
employment.
It's a significant pay cut, or you're working for somebody who doesn't know how to do your job, and you got to tell them how to do the job that they're trying to do. I mean, that's just you're creating a bad place. And they got to understand that. That would be like, if somebody came and told the governor, "Hey, we're going to make you Secretary of State now," and he's like, "What? Yeah, you can either take it or leave it." He's going to be like, "What? Well, no, I'm the governor. No, we don't have enough money to pay you. We're going to make you Secretary of State now. You can either do that, or you can go get on an unemployment line. It's up to you, but you can't collect unemployment because we offered you a job and you turned it down."
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's the craziness about it. For me, the thing that I'm worried about right now is there's a big push under the current presidency to privatize like almost everything. And, we're seeing the powers that be in Washington trying to push the post office to close its doors and become, a private agency, let FedEx take over, right?
Oh my God.
My thinking right now is I'm worried that our leaders are trying to do the same thing with children's division so they can privatize it. And
I don't want that profit driven in any form.
No, you do not. You do not. Not in my opinion. You do not want that.
No. I think in all of our opinion, you don't want that because we've seen the product of privatizing things. I mean,
there are things that are worth privatizing. Technology is worth privatizing. I am 100% on that. Anything with social services or things that has to do with the well-being of individuals, I don't like the idea of privatizing that at all.
I'm with you.
I mean, Delta, would you work for a private police force in a neighborhood and
you
feel
basically
like
be a mercenary is what you are?
It's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, because they're gonna pay me more.
What a jackass!
Look. All seriousness. The reason why I said yes because one, they're gonna pay me more. Two, I'm gonna have better equipment to do my job, and three, I can cut out a lot of red tape and dealing with the high upper when it comes down to me enforcing my job.
But if you're being paid as a private contractor,
do you think you would be forced to do things that you don't want to do?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go to. Where do you draw the line?
I would still have to live up to the Constitution. I still have to do things that's lawfully and ethically.
That's where I think things get blurred a little bit.
Yeah,
because you have lobbyists that can start making things happen for the company.
Right. That's a slippery slope, as they say.
But I understand where you're coming from, Delta. Though I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, working for privatized companies, you get better resources, and that makes you doing your job easier. But when it's something like that, when it's policing people and enforcing law, I guess it does sound iffy in my opinion. But I may not be understanding as well.
Dan, I have go ahead.
It's gonna be iffy.
Yeah. Dan, I have advocated on this show about the importance of local elections. We want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things right now is influence. See, for me, you know, I got my own personal politics, right? For me right now with this issue, what's important is that the politicians are either on board or they're not. And in my opinion, those local elections are really critical. Either you are for the children being safe and the agency having the money it needs to do its job, or you're not. And if you're not, the people should hear it. I mean, if there's a Republican that's going to oppose this, I'll back them. You know, if there's a Democrat that's going to oppose this, I'll back them. The kicker is to figure out what your local politicians either A, care and are willing to state their opinion and follow through with it. And that's where the power of voting and the power of communication and the power of transparency come into play. You know, so for me, we started reaching out to our local representatives, and we're trying to get them to look into this issue and to address it and weigh in on it. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
And like I said, I know that we don't understand how much control the local government has over those things. Like when they're funding things like what's one of the there's a oh God, I can't think of it now. It's just out of the head. One of the places like that women and children can go when they're being abused
Planned
and things
Parenting.
like.
Oh,
No,
crisis center.
Not like a crisis, different crisis centers. In the southern part of Missouri, I don't know if you guys notice now, but there is a lot of places for homeless and battered women and kids, and they got a lot of different shelters. And I never seen anything like this until I was down there working, and I kind of heard about this stuff, and I was like, man, that's awesome. But those places got to get funded from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think those local agencies. Well, I mean, I would imagine they are. Dan, are those places being affected by these budget cuts?
Not yet, but there's a lot of fear that grants and money from the government are going to get affected by this. As of right now, that hasn't happened, but a lot of these folks see the writing on the wall with Children's Division, and they're like, oh man, we're on the same side as these people. If they'll do that to them, they might do that to us. So a lot of people are talking out about that on the private nonprofit sector, right?
Right.
So here in Missouri, I mean, obviously they're taking money out of these departments and in these fields that are obviously meant to help people who are living in poverty or the result of poverty or whatever like that. And they're reinvesting it into wealthier departments, I guess you could say, areas that bring in more wealth. I feel like we had this really good long run where everyone, I mean, it wasn't like a huge surge, but everyone was just doing better and better and better. And now we're getting to this point again where we're going to have this huge gap between poverty and wealthy. And it's only going to get made worse from this kind of decision. And I mean, you see it on the federal politics on the federal level, but then you're seeing it now on the local level. I'm kind of worried that we're going to have this hole that it's going to take us another generation to dig out of.
Hey, Joe, I don't mean to interrupt you. Hey, Dan, I appreciate, Dan, you coming on the show. Thank you for that knowledge you expressed to us. And I hope everybody listening and paid close attention to what you're saying, because we really need this funding back in y'all department. But sorry, I got to get ready to go. I got to pick up my son. He's inside waiting on me.
We'll see you, Delta.
So,
you better get your kid call social services on your ass.
I'll get you. Thanks for joining us, Delta.
Hey,
they ain't gonna show up at your house and take your kid.
From what I've been told, it's gonna be a while. All right, brother. Hey, man.
See
All right, Delta.
Talk to y'all later.
All right, bro. All right.
So yeah, we like I said, we try to get some of the word out. That's the whole reason we started this podcast, is to try to educate people a little bit on things they don't know about. I didn't know as much as I did I did know about children division until I worked in law enforcement, and I learned a lot, and I had to learn fast, especially when I got promoted, because I was like, they're like, you in charge of this now. Anytime a call comes in, it's on you, and I'm like, what? So so I had to learn about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate you coming on and speaking out about this, and we definitely are advocating for you guys. And I know
Definitely.
I know that is a very specialized job. I've got to witness some people in action. I work with a lot of great people where I was at, and that really have a passion for what they're doing. I've met a lot of people who have a really big passion for what they're doing. They're not doing this for money. They're not doing this for any type of accolades. They're doing it because they actually care about what they're doing.
They're public servants. That's the big thing.
When the legs
more people like that.
When the legs get cut from under you like that, when you're doing all you can and spending all these hours, and most of you guys are salary, right, Dan?
More or less. We still have to track our hours.
Yeah, but how many times have you made one more phone call or that one more stop on the way home, and you didn't track that hour just because you were worried about whether or not this person got what they needed or got that paperwork that they need to do it? I mean, that's just as part of the job, because I know I did it. I wasn't off duty until I got out of the car at the house.
One of the weird things about Children's Division is it doesn't directly pay out for overtime. Like, whenever you work overtime, you accrue overtime as like vacation hours. And then when you quit or retire or whatever, then they'll pay you out at the end of that. But for the most part, they don't pay out overtime. So Children's Division is the only job I've ever worked where my workers hide that they're working over 40 hours a week.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
Because they're
That is
afraid
crazy.
of getting accused of not being efficient and wasting their time.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that it creates an exploitative situation with management, you got another thing coming.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to think that somebody's like, well, I'm going to go by here and do this real quick, but I'm not going to tell my supervisor is also a safety issue.
It is a safety issue. And
it's
then
a safety issue.
The other thing that happens is it creates this precedent where they're getting this job done in 50 hours, 55, 60 hours, but basically claiming 40 hours. And then they go to their boss and they don't claim any overtime. And then the entire system has this idea that the job's able to be done in 40 hours because no one's claiming overtime.
Right.
So then you're in a position where you're
damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Damn
Talk
if
about
you do
systemic failures.
I mean, and then aren't there like time frames on like when you have to contact somebody or something like that, or aren't there time frames?
There's time frames on everything, but yeah, basically with investigations of abuse and neglect, you've got between 3 hours and 72 hours, depending on the report type, to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
If the kid comes into care, you've got to notify the grandparents within, I think, 24 to 72 hours. You got to see all the kids within 24 hours.
And everybody's number's right in the phone book. That's right, easy to find.
Yeah,
right?
Just right there.
It's like a breeze. When they ask you, well, what's his name, Dad? No, what's his name, Dad?
You're trying to find a grandpa named John Smith. It's difficult.
Yeah, never heard that name before. That's crazy.
Are you got a nickname, Big Dave? Oh, no. Okay, Big Dave.
That's not there.
Hey, you need to stay in touch. Yeah, really. Can you stay in touch with us and just let us know if you start getting any traction with that, and we'd love to have you back
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got Dan's contact. I'm sure he'll keep me in the loop.
Good.
What's going on, man? We really appreciate you coming on tonight, and like I said, we're gonna advocate for you and all your fellow people out there that are putting in those 60 hours a week. We were talking about tipping earlier. Maybe people need to start tipping you guys.
Yeah. I don't think that would be a really
They
clean,
need a huge
you don't think
tip.
that won't work?
You took my kid. Here's
They need their own
$5.
grant.
Yeah. The only
I'm
tips
glad
I
you
get
took
are
this
where I
badass
could
kid.
go,
Here's $10.
The only tips I get are where I could go to
I'm
do
sure
immoral things. So
that's terrible.
But
thanks,
gentlemen,
again.
it's been a pleasure and a privilege. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Thanks,
It's my
Dan.
first podcast I've ever done, so that's
Hey,
All right.
there
Well, we
you
don't
go.
want to set up any high
Oh,
expectations.
sweet.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, we're We're like super high budget right now.
Super high budget.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. You have a good day.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
You have a good one.
Have a good one.
All
right, fellas. That was decent.
That was pretty good.
Guess who just texted me tomorrow? He just woke up.
Reese?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Reese just woke up. That's why he wasn't here, people.
Reese is terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we talked about a lot of great things today, guys. Mike got the shades on. We talked about a lot of good stuff today. I hope you guys got some education behind this and
some awareness.
Yeah, definitely, guys.
Some awareness.
That was a good one. I kind of like that. I like that calling in, talking to experts kind of thing.
I think we need to find more guests who can come on and be, experts on these situations. 'Cause, I mean, if we had just mentioned this offhand, we wouldn't have had
the insight
information like that, and it's important. So, but
definitely. We'll keep that in mind.
We're gonna have hopefully have some more episodes coming a little more frequently. I think is the plan, and make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram. Twitter and Instagram we're more active on. We're on Facebook as well if you prefer that platform. Also, you can catch our podcast on YouTube for the videos, and then on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spotify for just audio if you just want to download it and listen to it on your way to work or to and from work. Make sure you like and subscribe. Helps the algorithm.
Do that.
All right. You guys want to say anything else?
You know what? You know what I want to say?
What?
Reese is on some bullshit. That dude went to sleep.
I can't believe he went to sleep that early.
I told y'all he was asleep.
You did say that. He's asleep.
That dude's asleep.
Don't tip like.
Oh man, I ran out of music. I gotta put my music back on. Hang on.
What?
Hey, Mike said, "Don't tip like soup."
Hey man, you know what? Y'all gonna have to get off me with the tip and stuff. It's a tip. It's a tip.
I'll bring you a Coke next time I get a tip.
Hey, you know what? You know what, JQ? I wish you could cue up the baby daddy video. That's how we need to go out.
I wish. I gotta do a lot of work to get that pulled up. And that other one, I couldn't figure out why it wasn't playing right.
That was hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Hey, if y'all after y'all get done watching the podcast, go on YouTube and hit up that's just my baby daddy dog dance.
Yeah.
That shit is hilarious.
It is freaking hilarious. It's really good. That's the content I'm looking for.
Wow.
Anyways, see y'all. Have a good one.
All right. Peace.
Peace.